Episode 6. A Memory That Never Happened. Ethan began the day with a certainty that immediately felt wrong. It was small, harmless on the surface, the kind of thing people trust without question. He was sure he had already locked the front door. Standing in the hallway, keys still in his hand, he stared at the handle with a quiet unease that had nothing to do with forgetfulness. He remembered turning the key. He remembered the sound it made. He even remembered thinking, briefly, about how stiff the lock felt lately, and yet the door was unlocked. He locked it again, slower this time, listening carefully to the click. The sound felt real, solid, but the memory of the first lock did not fade. It stayed. Two versions of the same moment now occupied his mind, both equally vivid, both equally convincing. Ethan stood there longer than necessary, breathing steadily, waiting for the pressure behind his eyes to rise. That frightened him. At school, the contradictions multiplied. A teacher greeted Ethan by name in the hallway and asked if he was feeling better after missing class the day before. Ethan froze. "I was here yesterday," he said carefully. The teacher frowned, confused but not alarmed. "No, you weren't. You emailed me, said you weren't feeling well." Ethan felt his pulse quicken. "I didn't send any email." The teacher laughed it off. "Must be thinking of someone else." She walked away before Ethan could say anything more. Ethan stood still, the hallway flowing around him. He remembered yesterday clearly. The classes, the notes, the lunch conversation with Claire. None of it felt hazy or dreamlike. But now there was evidence, spoken casually, confidently, that another version of the day existed. One that excluded him. Claire noticed before he said anything. "You're quiet," she said as they sat near the courtyard. Ethan hesitated, then told her about the door, the teacher, the email he hadn't sent. Claire's expression tightened. "That happened to me this morning." Ethan looked at her sharply. "My mom thanked me for calling her last night," she continued. "We talked for 20 minutes. She remembered it clearly." "And you?" Ethan asked. "I was asleep," Claire said. "I checked my phone. No call. No missed call. Nothing." The pressure behind Ethan's eyes flared briefly, then settled. "This is different," he said. "It's not erasing. It's replacing," Claire replied. They sat in silence, both of them understanding what that meant. A missing memory could be ignored. A false one could not. That afternoon, Ethan tried to anchor himself. He wrote things down. Not observations or theories, but facts, things he could verify immediately. The color of the classroom walls. The name of the substitute teacher. The exact time the final bell rang. He checked each detail twice. Everything held. For now. But the act of recording felt defensive. As if he were already losing ground in a war he didn't know how to fight. At home, his mother asked him about a photograph she couldn't find. "The one from the lake," she said casually. "From when you were 12. Ethan frowned. "We never went to a lake." His mother paused, genuinely confused. "Of course we did. You fell in. You cried the whole drive back." She smiled at the memory. Ethan felt cold spread through his chest. He could picture it. Not as imagination, as recollection. The smell of water, the weight of wet clothes, the embarrassment, felt real. And yet, "I don't remember that," he said slowly. His mother's smile faltered. "You've told that story yourself, Ethan." She shook her head lightly, dismissing the moment. "You're overtired." Ethan said nothing, because the problem was not that he didn't remember the lake. It was that part of him suddenly did. That night, Ethan dreamed again. This time, the dream didn't announce itself as one. He was sitting at his desk, sunlight slanting through the window, dust floating lazily in the air. Claire stood beside him, holding a sheet of paper. "You already agreed," she said. "Agreed to what?" Ethan asked. She looked confused. "To stop asking questions." Ethan felt the now familiar tightening in his chest. "I wouldn't do that," he said. Claire sighed, disappointed. "You did. You said it wasn't worth it anymore." The room dimmed slightly. Ethan woke with a sharp inhale. The clock read 3:12 a.m., not 3:07. The fan was running. The air was calm. And yet, something felt missing. Not a moment. A decision. The message arrived the next morning. Not on his phone. On his notebook. Ethan opened it during first period and froze. A sentence had been written across the top of the page in neat, unfamiliar handwriting. "This memory is not yours." Ethan stared at the words, his pulse roaring in his ears. Claire noticed his expression and leaned closer. Her breath caught when she read it. "That wasn't there before," she whispered. Ethan shook his head. "I would have noticed." The pressure behind his eyes surged violently, then receded. Time wasn't just watching anymore. It was intervening without permission. They skipped lunch. Instead, they went to the old transit station, drawn there by a shared instinct neither of them questioned. The wall was still there. The poster was gone. No tape, no residue, no sign it had ever existed. Claire exhaled shakily. "It erased it." Ethan shook his head. "No, it erased the proof." As if summoned by the thought, the woman appeared at the edge of the platform, emerging from the shadow of a closed stairwell. "You're starting to feel it everywhere now," she said calmly. Ethan turned to her. "It's changing memories." She nodded. "It always did. You just didn't notice before." Claire's voice trembled. "Why let us notice now?" The woman looked at the tracks below. "Because it's running out of clean corrections." Ethan frowned. "What does that mean?" "It means," she said, meeting his eyes, "that time prefers clocks to memories." The pressure surged sharply. Ethan felt it then, a sudden awareness of every ticking sound around him. The distant rhythm of signals, the hum of machinery, the measured certainty of seconds passing. Something solid, something that could be trusted. More than memory. That evening, Ethan stood in his room and stared at the clock on his wall. It was an old analog one, battery-powered, reliable. He watched the second hand move. Once, twice, 3 times. Then it hesitated, just for a fraction of a second. Then it jumped. Ethan's breath caught. The clock read 7:42 p.m. His phone read 7:41. He checked again. The phone corrected itself. 7:42. Ethan's stomach dropped. Which one had lied? The phone vibrated immediately. Unknown number. Memory is flexible. Time is not. Ethan stared at the clock, his reflection faint in the glass. If time could lie through clocks, then nothing was stable anymore. Ethan did not sleep. He lay on his bed with the lights off, eyes open, listening to the small sounds of the house settle into place. The clock on the wall ticked steadily, each second identical to the last. It was the kind of sound people stopped hearing after a while. Ethan listened to every tick. The phone on his desk glowed faintly, screen dark but awake, as if waiting for him to look. He didn't. He kept his attention on the clock, on the certainty it represented. Seconds passed. Then something went wrong. The ticking didn't stop. It repeated. Not faster, not slower. The same second again. Ethan sat up sharply. The second hand stuttered, hovering between 2 marks before snapping forward. The sound resumed its steady rhythm as if nothing had happened. Ethan's heart pounded. Time had hesitated, and this time he had proof. The next morning he tested it. Not with theories, with objects. He placed his phone on the desk and turned off automatic time correction. He checked the wall clock and set both to the same second. Then he waited. At 9:17 a.m., the phone changed first. The clock followed a moment later. A delay so small it would go unnoticed by anyone not watching for it. Ethan watched anyway. He wrote the times down. At 9:42, the clock jumped ahead by 1 second without the phone doing the same. At 10:03, the phone corrected itself to match the clock. Ethan felt the pressure behind his eyes build slowly, steadily. Time was not drifting. It was negotiating. At school, the problem spread. Ethan heard it before he saw it. An argument near the main office, voices raised in confusion rather than anger. "I signed in at 8:12, a man insisted. "That's what the clock said." The receptionist frowned. "The system shows 8:13. That's impossible, the man said. I watched the second hand. Students gathered nearby, pretending not to listen. The argument ended quietly, unresolved. But the damage remained. Two clocks had disagreed, and someone had noticed. Claire met Ethan in the stairwell between classes. It's happening, she said without greeting. The clocks. He nodded. They're not aligned anymore. Claire swallowed. My watch skipped a minute this morning. Not jumped ahead. Skipped. One moment it said 7:58. Then it said 8 o'clock. And you noticed, Ethan said. Yes. The pressure surged. This wasn't memory anymore. This was measurement. That afternoon, Ethan found the notebook again. He didn't remember putting it in his bag. But there it was, tucked between textbooks. When he opened it, a new page had been added. Not torn, not creased, just there. The handwriting was neat, deliberate. Memory can be edited. Time must be consistent. Below it, a single line had been underlined twice. When time fails, everything fails. Ethan closed the notebook slowly. This wasn't a warning. It was a rule. He went to the transit station after school, alone this time. The woman was already there, standing near the tracks, watching the signal lights change. Red to yellow, yellow to green, green to red again. They're lying now, Ethan said quietly. She didn't turn. They always did, just not where people could see. Why the clocks? Ethan asked. Why not keep changing memories? She finally looked at him. Because memories contradict each other quietly. Clocks don't. Ethan felt the truth of that settle heavily. When two people remember different things, she continued, they argue, they doubt themselves, they adapt. And when two clocks disagree? Ethan asked. She smiled faintly. People panic. The signal light flickered. Not off, not on, between. They've been correcting time for longer than you think, she said. Minutes, seconds, whole hours sometimes. But they kept the instruments aligned. And now? Ethan asked. Now awareness is outpacing correction. The pressure surged sharply, then pulled back, like something listening too closely. They don't want to erase clocks, she added. They want clocks to erase us. That night the city faltered. Not dramatically, precisely. Traffic lights across 3 intersections failed to synchronize. Drivers stopped, unsure who had the right of way. A digital billboard froze on a timestamp that didn't match any nearby clock. Ethan watched it all from his window. His phone buzzed. Unknown number. Stop observing the instruments. Ethan typed back without hesitation. You can't erase clocks. The reply came slower than usual. We can make them unreliable. Ethan's chest tightened. Then what's left? The pause stretched. Then, compliance. Ethan set the phone down. If clocks could lie, then certainty itself was under threat. At 3:04 a.m., the clock on Ethan's wall began to tick louder. Not physically louder, perceptibly louder. Each second landed with emphasis as if demanding attention. 3:05. The fan slowed. 3:06. The phone screen lit up without a message. 3:07. Nothing froze. Instead, the clock jumped. 3:09. Ethan gasped. The phone still read 3:07. 2 seconds passed on the phone. The clock remained at 3:09. Then both displays flickered. 3:08. Ethan's breath came shallow. Time wasn't skipping forward or backward. It was contradicting itself. The pressure surged violently. The room felt unstable, not compressed but misaligned, like 2 versions of the same space overlapping imperfectly. Ethan grabbed the notebook and opened it. A new line appeared beneath the last. The first lie was a second. The clock ticked. The phone vibrated. Unknown number. You are forcing desynchronization. Ethan whispered. No. I'm noticing it. The reply appeared instantly. That is the same thing now. The next morning, the news mentioned it. Not by name. Not directly. A brief segment about localized timing irregularities affecting public transport and digital systems. Experts reassured viewers it was temporary, technical, under control. Ethan turned off the television. Claire texted him moments later. My school clocks are all different. Teachers don't know which one to follow. Ethan closed his eyes. This was it. The shift. Memory had been the quiet battlefield. Clocks were public, and public contradictions could not be erased gently. That afternoon, Ethan returned to the transit station. The woman stood beneath the main clock, looking up at it. It read 4:22. Ethan's phone read 4:21. She didn't look surprised. They'll try to fix it, she said. They always do. How? Ethan asked. She met his eyes. By choosing one clock and calling the others wrong. And who decides which one? Ethan asked. The woman smiled sadly. Whoever people trust most. The station clock ticked. Once, then twice. Then it skipped. 4:24. Ethan felt the pressure spike so hard it made him dizzy. The woman stepped back. This is where it starts, she said. When time has to lie out loud. The phone vibrated. Unknown number. You are approaching a correction threshold. Ethan stared up at the clock, the lie displayed openly for anyone to see. He finally understood. When memory failed, time adapted. When time failed, authority would step in. And authority would choose which time was real.